Hello there.
Hello. Okay, so we thought we'd get a little more serious about Ananias. 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 Am I doing it right now? Ananias.
No, the way I pronounce it, and there could be some variant of it, but it's Ananias. Ananias.
Okay. So Ananias's dream on are animals rational and moral beings. And overall, the theme of the entire 2-hour piece, a 2-hour and 40-minute piece that they do, is that they are trying to make man special and separate them not by degrees, but by a jump, a quantum leap from animals to humans. And now, in some ways, one could argue that because humans, for some reason, grew this big, huge brain, and we grew it seems like we grew some extra circuits as well as this ability for a very refined language. And that put us a quantum leap ahead of other primates. And of course, we already had the fingers. So then we became, we took our tool making skills and added the concept. But when you look at the neuroscience of it, it is by degrees. And as they point out in this video, they say we're 1% different than chimps. I think we're 1.4 or 2% different DNA-wise. We added a few extra chromosomes, and a lot of them have to do with the brain. In fact, that chromosome fusion too, it looks like some of the genes that were cut out allowed our brains to grow bigger. That's I can't back that up. I heard that anecdotally. So anyway, but yeah, you could say that, humans are really special animals. We know that. But then we're humans, right? Like, my brothers, and cousins, you say, oh, the Brusniaks are really special. Every family thinks they're special. Every species thinks they're special. The whales probably feel pretty special too. So I don't know.
If you could ask a whale about it, maybe they do.
We could ask a whale. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Plus, this isn't a big factor for most religious believers, but remember there was a whole spectrum starting 1.5 to 2 million years ago of various primates, hominids, developing not only their bodies but their brains and skulls over time, so that there's definitely a matter of degrees. But the problem is a lot of those species of hominid that developed their brain further and further and further across time went extinct. So it looks like a quantum leap, because we're only looking at humans and human minds, Homo sapiens.
So Father Ananias teaches at a Catholic college, Catholic community college, I think, or what? I forget what they
Did you just say Carroll College? I don't know what kind of university or college it is.
Catholic college. And he, in this entire video, he's been arguing with his students about whether animals are rational. And I think he just treats his students kind of unfairly, telling them they're making logical errors and category errors and stuff. But anyway, jumping ahead quite a bit from where we were yesterday, I thought this is 2 hours and 40 minutes. We're going to do a few clips and talk a little bit about animal rationality. And but it's it's really interesting that they think they can solve this problem with philosophy and religion and the Bible and Orthodox philosophy without going down to the neuroscience and taking a look at what's really going on in cognition. And we'll look a little bit at that too. Scott did some work on ChatGPT as I did. Anyway, I found out that speeding them up to 1.25 makes them almost normal. So we're going to run it at that. If it's too fast, let me know, guys. And before we go, have to take a major sip of coffee. Okay. Ready?
Go right ahead.
I think we're going to talk about kitties, but I don't know, we'll see.
Back to that thing because that was some of my students. They were like, well, my dog knows that they did bad. And I speak anthropomorphically that to my cat.
Right.
And one of my cats, very intelligent, and they're growing and evolving too. And I put it on Twitter a month ago. My cat's learning certain stuff. And as you had pointed out too, I think animals are given for our salvation. I think we're not actually demeaning animals. Yeah. And that animals from the feral life to the domestic are lifted up beyond.
Yes.
Because this is what we're doing with our creation. And then the creation itself is pedagogically guiding us. And I think animals are essential to that teach us something about God and salvation. I really do believe that. And so they begin to become more just as we do, right? Mm-hmm. We're demonstrating something of God, right? That God enters into a relationship and we become more than what we were. Don't we do the same thing with animals? We bring them in and they're lifted up and they start to display some of the qualities of human beings, just like human beings start to display some of the qualities of God. Right. You know, they can't be.
I don't know about that.
I detect projection and anthropomorphizing. Going on there. And this is like I said earlier, you might as well get out your Justice League comic books or your Avengers comic books if you're a Marvel person and start extracting life principles from those as well. Right now he's in fantasy land. Sure, he believes in God. He's presupposing God. He believes Scripture is true by revelation, but it has no real status for me in talking about the animal world because it's all making conclusions based on the equivalent of a comic book.
Yeah, the idea that animals are pretty cool and they're intelligent too, but it's because humans lift them up to our level as God lifts humans up to his level, right? So he's making that parallel. And he's sort of saying that animals are for us.
But another way to look at it is in terms of systems theory and homeostasis. Animals relate to one another's, out in the woods, out in the jungle, across the fields where there are no humans, because they've learned to reach a uneasy balance or homeostasis with the environment around them. Systems theory. Bring them into the human sphere, they're going to adjust to the humans around them. Maybe be less fearful of them. And learn to behave. So yeah, you can look at it theologically, but you can also look at it from a systems approach and probably come up with more objective, less projective, anthropomorphic, and less speculative conclusions. Yeah. That might allow you to make unique, novel, well, that's kind of redundant, novel predictions, which is much more useful.
Well, it's interesting. You put animals in a social situation with humans, and they start to adopt that socialization, that human socialization, which is what he's admitting to. And why would that be? It's almost as if their brains kind of work like ours. Because we grow up in a social situation, in a culture, and we adopt all those things as we grow up. We do the same thing as the animals do. So we can look at it that way. And that would be sort of him admitting that we kind of have a point, that animals are rational and they're capable of moral judgments and socialization. But we'll have to go to ChatGPT for some of that. Okay, going on.
And become uncreated. And through the energies and the activities of one's life that they live.
Right.
And I think that's really beautiful. And I watched my cats learn to watch TV. And it's not just, it's really interesting because, and I put this up, I caught him watching a documentary on Da Vinci. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So first it was reading Descartes, now it's Da Vinci. And I'm watching and I'm studying my cat. It's not just seeing just colors moving. It's starting to learn to focus in on the right information, like where the essential information is. It's strange.
Yeah, real strange.
I could see that. I'm like, that's remarkably intelligent. I can see that. I could say anthropomorphically, when I yell at my cat, get down from the cabinet or something like that. Oh, it knows, and it shows that it's. But here's what I think's going on at the high intelligence of animality, and then this will transition into apes and stuff like that, which would be apes and dolphins, maybe the highest primates, right? In terms of intelligence. As you said, there is cognition. That's important.
Absolutely.
There's consciousness, there's an awareness, right? Of what it's like that the animal has that a plant or rock does not. So it's not just simply reacting, it's aware, it's a sentient, right? It has consciousness. It has a level of intelligence in terms of cognition. So what it's doing, combined with instinct, it's linking. I think it has memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can even collect memories, right? And it's kind of putting them together. I associate this, and this is why Pavlovian training is so successful, in terms of pleasure and pain.
Right.
That's admitting quite a bit. Okay, they have memory, they have cognition, they have intelligence, they have consciousness, they have awareness. What's different between them and humans, except by degree? They want to have some rational thing they're calling rationality, which they have not yet defined. I think I'm at an hour and 50 minutes in this video, so I got about 50 minutes left that I have not watched, I must admit. Because it's painstaking to watch it. But they still haven't really defined what this great God-given rationality that puts humans over and above all animals is, though they try a little bit later. So I don't know. So this kind of goes into the part, you had a part at, you go through Wittgenstein according to YouTube's translation ability, calls Wittgenstein. I love it. You think they would get this shit right after a while? These transcript translation programs. Let me see here. What do we got? Oh, we're going to talk about. Did we talk about anthropomorphizing? Oh yeah, we do in a minute. Yeah, there's a point I want to make about that.
And that's what's going on, is you're starting to see qualities that look like you, like the ears down and the tail, right? Well, that it doesn't know that it's done bad, even though we say, oh, it's no poor guy knows he did wrong. You're reading stuff in, you're anthropomorphizing.
Okay. So it's really interesting. He says, okay, it puts his tail down and its ears down and all that stuff, but it doesn't know. What does he mean by, what would it be to know that you've done bad over and above what the cat has picked up? And then he says,
and
morphizing.
A 2-year-old isn't going to know that it done bad. 2-year-old human, and it still may exhibit, those, face down, a look of almost contrition because they know they're going to get in trouble. It's just like a human. They grow along a spectrum of cognitive ability developmentally. It's just that, like cats or other animals, they kind of get stuck. I'm not going to call a 2-year-old not human because they have not yet reached their developmental level of cognition so that they can be aware of the ethical status of what they did. They're just going to know, oh, Mama mad at me. I shouldn't have done that.
Well,
so even that's not a real good dividing line. Yeah, we do kind of project our idea of ethical awareness, behavioral awareness on other animals, because we don't really know what's going on in their brain. But are they not somewhat like us, even when they do that? Because at some level, a toddler is going to have that same behavior until they grow old, a few more years. So I don't get where any hard and fast line is being drawn here to say that animals aren't rational.
Okay, but here's the interesting thing. When you start thinking about to know, what does it mean? What is the difference between the toddler knowing that it did wrong and an adult knowing that it did wrong? What is the actual difference between those two things that makes us say the adult knows that it did wrong, but the toddler doesn't?
Well, I guess at one level, we can look at our behavior and say, that goes against what's written in this book I believe in, if that's where you get your ethics from. That can also, at some level or at some point, in different degrees, even among adult humans, they can say, oh, I did that, and now they feel this person or that I did it, it feels angry with me or feels hurt. I've inconvenienced them and I've done wrong. Or I've taken something valuable from them, if you're going to steal from them, and I feel bad now because I took something that was theirs, and it's going to be hard for them to replace it or whatever. You can think about what you did to that person and how they're going to feel about it. And so you can arrive at ethical and moral conclusions that way.
Yeah. So what we mean by to know is having more associations that we can do with it and doing more projection into the future, right? So what we mean by to know is skills that we develop about projecting into the future, about thinking days and weeks ahead instead of moments ahead, and other skills which are things we acquire as human beings. So when we say to know, I don't think we know what the hell we mean by that exactly. And this thing about anthropomorphizing, I don't think we anthropomorphize animals as much as we anthropomorphize human beings. Now, that is a curious statement, right? So this anthropomorphic image that we have about what it means to know, to reason, to do whatever, in my view, is an illusion that we have about how we think. We have the thing that we write home about, right? The thing that with the manifest image of what it means to be a human and to know things and all these different words that we come up with. And we have that image. But I think that is an illusion. The way we actually think, when you put us in a brain scan and you start looking at how we move very quickly from thing to thing, you find out that we don't really think like we think we think. So I would claim that we are anthropomorphizing ourselves, and the anthropomorphic image is what's false. And it basically, whether it's applied to animals or humans, that's not how thinking works. What do you think of that? What do you think of that shit, boys and girls?
I think I'm thinking of that. But no, that's to me, you hit on something that's really important. Is we have cognitive neuroscience for a reason.
Yep.
Because we don't think the way we think we think.
Right.
We don't think the way that philosophers have decided that we think centuries ago. So what do we know now that we didn't know then? And how do we work that into the thinking process where we come to conclusions about human thought and human rationality and the thought and rationality of animals?
Right.
that has to be taken into account. I don't know a whole lot of cognitive neuroscience. I don't know how much the people in that video we're looking at know, but it's really important. And when you are skeptical against science because it doesn't conform to your orthodox views, I don't think we're going to get much useful knowledge out of it.
Who said pig DNA was closest to humans?
We had someone say that earlier in the live chat.
Oh my God. Okay. I guess that's why we don't pay too much attention to live chat sometimes. Let's see. Permanent human origins understanding our past DNA comparing humans and chimps. Stephanie put a link up. A good link. Anyway, okay. So that's an important point, that we have this manifest image. Okay, Wilfred Sellers talks about the manifest image and the scientific image. And my best understanding of it is that we have this idea about how the world works. Like we think gravity is a force which attracts. But then the scientific image says, no, it's curved space-time. It's a totally different thing. So the scientific image often disagrees with the manifest image. And I think the place where we are most off the mark is when we think about our own minds and consciousness and what animals can teach us by understanding animal cognition and understanding how we are like animals. What it can teach us is more about the scientific image, the actual way that we think. And I think that's really important. They think that what we're doing is we're demeaning humans by making us like animals. And what we're thinking is we're raising animals up to the level of humanity. So it's just, 2 of this and 3 of that or whatever. It's just a matter of opinion, right, about which way we're going. I don't think we're demeaning humans at all by figuring out how much we have in common with dogs and cows and things like that.
Well, what we're doing is trying a different system, a different way of thinking about life on this planet altogether. I don't think in terms of demeaning humans or raising animals or whatever. This is life on planet Earth, and it's interconnected, and this is how things relate.
Right.
The idea of raising humans in respect to God, or keeping animals in a lower place in their relationship to God and humanity, that's more of a theological and religious effort, and I don't find much value in that.
All DNA is 96% the same? I don't think so, DeFreak. I don't think so. You might want to check your sources on that. Anyway, why are we so different than chimps? We're not. We're 1% different, 1.8, 1.2% different. But it's a difference that makes a difference. So we are not the same animals. We're different animals. Get it through your heads. Okay, so I wonder. Let's see. Concept animals. Oh, okay. I guess we'll just go on.
Like you said, there's a cognition process. It's linking that to this is a painful or unpleasurable experience. I remember that.
Right.
And maybe they have a series of those, and maybe they can even make future predictions and stuff like that. That is not rationality. So now let's move into the topic of but
now in this video they have taken rationality and they've taken one piece at a time out and thrown it away. And when they get down to it, what are they going to have left? Okay, animals can predict the future a little bit and they can think about the future, but that's not rationality. And this isn't rationality. Well, what is? Godliness.
But animals, the high primate, they have a language. Now, Donald Davidson, Wittgenstein, you already quoted Wittgenstein, correct?
He does say Wittgenstein.
And what's
Robert
the other?
Brandom.
Robert Brandom. A lot of these guys are Kantian, and all of them are going to say animals, even the highest primates, do not have a language. Wilfred Sellers calls this language requires concepts,
Right.
and animals don't have concepts. They have
That was my number one reason. I listed 10 on why I believe animals are not rational or moral entities or agents. My first one is a lack of abstract thought. So what if they can't conceptualize ideas such as justice, morality, or infinity, and language, and having a language would be would make an attempt to communicate or convey those abstract ideas through, auditorial vibrations, mouth noises, written language, something like that. I don't think the dolphins are communicating to each other about the afterlife while they're swimming. They may be communicating about watch out for the.
Because dolphins are too smart to believe in the afterlife.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. It just never occurred to them to think that after another dolphin dies, that he goes up above the water onto the land and lives in this paradise or whatever, paradise above the water. I wonder if I should jump ahead, but there's an important part here that they brought up about concepts and Wilfred Sellers that I did a little work on ChatGPT with. But maybe we'll defer that. What do you think? Your part was at 122, right?
Somewhere around. I started at 121 and just took a few steps. In fact, right now I'm typing a little question into the app right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here. We can round back later. Professor Plink's philosophy channel is here. Professor Plink, is that Pink or Professor Pink's philosophy channel? Oh, wow! I want to link to that channel. Does Professor Pink have a wrench? No, Professor Pink doesn't have a wrench. Hang on a second. We're going to fix that. Let's see. Add moderator. Managing moderator. Standard moderator. Okay. Now you got a wrench. Now you can link us to your channel.
Okay. Here's a question I just posed to ChatGPT. So all results are, what's the word? Provisional and tentative. Do non-human animals have concepts according to science? And the answer is yes. Scientific evidence strongly suggests that many non-human animals possess and use concepts, though their conceptual abilities are often simpler and more tied to specific contexts compared to humans. A concept is a mental representation that allows an individual to group objects, events, or ideas based on shared characteristics or relationships, and many non-human animals have demonstrated this ability in controlled experiments. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but evidence for concepts in non-human animals, categorization among pigeons and primates, relational concepts among crows and parrots as well as primates, numerical concepts in rhesus monkeys, chimpanzees, and birds, tool-related concepts in chimpanzees and crows, abstract symbol use according to Alex the parrot and Kanzi the bonobo, planning and future thinking. Goes from concrete to abstract. So I'm sure they have points they can pick with the scientific data, because that's what theologians and a lot of Christians like to do. But I just don't think there's as strong a demarcation as they would have people believe.
Oh, I'm not going to unwrench Professor Pink just because he's not Professor Blink. And if you got a channel, please post your channel for us. Anyway, we're getting to the good part now. We're getting to Momo. Momo's pretty cool. Momo's going to be fun, right? And that happens at 122. So let's listen to this part about language. 121, 122. Let me see. Where are we? Okay.
I have a quote here from my thesis advisor. It will become important to note that Sellers, at least in his later work, our basic perceptual capacities also benefit from the sophisticated, evolved animal representational systems involving proto-concepts of objects, object tracking abilities, that are natural animal inheritance, in which are possessed in various forms by both non-language using and language using animals like ourselves. So maybe that's, and all of this is going to be couched in terms of, in order to actually say you have a language, you're going to have a lot, what Sellers calls the logical space of reasons, a kind of framework that involves beyond just animal representation, but a much more sophisticated representation, of which we're going to talk about, is abstraction. Okay, so let's take Momo the ape. So
Momo the ape. Okay.
Momo, what's the amount of, so they'll be like, but sign language is a language. I've never liked that. Sign language is derivative of, right, actual formal languages, correct?
Right.
I don't think that it can be considered a language in itself because it's derived and is contingent upon actual natural languages. But even if I granted that, whatever. Momo learns 86 words, sign language.
Okay, Momo. So it turns out Momo, the sign language gorilla, is
the signing gorilla, and his trainer, Gene Corbell. I visited Momo at the Duke Primate Center, where he has lived since he was rescued from a bushfire in his native Africa. Gene has worked with Momo for 3 years and claims he is completely... Okay, now Gene...
Nice.
Okay, Momo, or Gene, I'm sorry. Will you ask Momo how he likes living in a cage?
Sure, Momo. Momo likes to live in a cage. Mm-hmm. Tire girl.
Tire girl?
Yes, Momo likes to play on his tire and watch reruns.
okay. It's a comedy clip, right? There is no Momo the gorilla. It's Coco.
Very satirical. Now, there may be somewhere, but it's just not on the internet that we can find yet.
Not that we can find, right?
Let me. May I make a point about sign language since he brought it up?
Yeah.
Okay. So he said he doesn't like considering sign language an actual language. Right. So I asked ChatGPT, and once again, I know all results are provisional and tentative, but it kind of gives you some idea of where the data is leaning. I asked, according to linguists, is sign language a legitimate language? Yes, according to linguists, sign languages are legitimate languages. They meet all the criteria used to define a language, included complex grammar, syntax, morphology, and ability to express abstract, concrete, and nuanced ideas. Linguistic studies of sign languages, such as American Sign Language, British Sign Language, and others, have shown that these languages are not merely gestures or pantomime, but are fully developed linguistic systems. Why sign languages are considered legitimate languages, I'm just going to give the major points. Complex grammar and syntax, morphology, arbitrariness, productivity, abstract and concrete expression, cultural variation, language acquisition, neurological basis. Misconceptions about sign language is that it says not universal. So basically, communities develop sign language. There's not one sign language for everybody. Not derived from spoken language. Sign languages are not direct visual translations of spoken language. For instance, ASL has a grammar and structure that is distinct from English. So as they go into critique the use of sign language in primates, like Coco or Kanzai or others, he's starting off from a very shaky premise, because sign language is a real language type. So, and it doesn't require spoken language.
Okay, so I checked out Momo on ChatGPT. I'm not aware of a famous gorilla named Momo who was documented using sign language or any other human language. Possible there's some confusion with a well-known case, Coco. Okay. Now, Coco, allegedly understanding and using hundreds of signs based on American Sign Language, ASL. Francis Penny Patterson, I don't know who he was talking about. Coco was known for her gentle and curious nature. Coco died recently, I think 2017 or something like that. Let's see, they have other Nim Chimsky, Washu, and Kansi are other chimps that were involved. Okay, now what I heard is that Coco came up with the concept of drink fruit for a watermelon. And yes, that's one of the stories often shared about Coco's creative sign usage. Coco would sometimes invent her own compound signs by combining signs she already knew to label a new or less familiar object. One popular example, exactly what you mentioned, reportedly signed drink fruit to mean watermelon, finger bracelet for ring, and eye hat for mask, which is kind of cool when you think about it. And let's see how many. I think it was like Coco used over 1,000 distinct signs and understood around 2,000 spoken English words. So that is radically different than just knowing 86 simple signs and not being able to put them together in a compound manner. So I think Mr. Ananias
Was her name is Sorem, I think.
Yeah, Sorem should have done his research on this a little more thoroughly and not come up with some Momo the gorilla meme from the internet. So, and there's now he talks a little later about babies, I think, not being able, animals not being able to think red ball, not to be able to use concepts, right? Like when you say red ball, you name one thing, right? One thing in the universe or in the world, a particular object. And they're not able to make universal categorizations to all balls. And if you say blue ball, they're going to be confused. And that's not the case. I know for a fact that my cats know what mousy means. It means bird or something flying around. It means anything that they can catch and torture. Mousy.
Play with.
Yeah. Play with. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. We don't want to.
One person's torture is another person's or another creature's play.
I guess so. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They don't feel that they're actually torturing the poor little mousy. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. Where are we going?
But once again, these radical distinctions that it seems like they're trying to make between animal rationality and human rationality isn't such a radical distinction. There's certainly a huge level of complexity difference between fully evolved hominids like Homo sapiens and the primates of the world as well as the non-primates of the world, but it's all along a spectrum. Part of that spectrum has been eliminated because basically all the other hominids that have existed have gone extinct, and we're the ones left. And so we obviously don't see that spectrum among hominids lived out in 3D in current time. So it just seems like that this radical differentiation is just not panning out.
It's a religious artifact. They want to make the Bible true, basically. And they're not going to be able to come up with decent research to back them up. There's two things, language and drawing, that have allowed humans to basically just catapult way ahead and become the screwed up dominant species on the earth that we are, with 8 billion of us actually wrecking the atmosphere. And those two things, once created, even though they don't require a whole lot of change genetically or neuronally, or not a lot of change in the brain, basically, to create these things. Once we got them, we were able to build one thing on top of another thing and come up with culture and pass on just massive amounts of information from one generation to another. And that just set us way ahead. And right now, AI is doing the same thing to us that we did to the other animals. Only we're not supposed to talk about it yet. But it's going to be kind of the same thing. One big radical departure. Anyway, where are we? Momo. We're going to talk about Momo. Proto-concepts. Okay, Sellers on proto-concepts. I looked into that a little bit, and he kind of like misinterprets Sellers a little bit. Sellers is kind of trying to explain how we learn concepts, and that concept is basically done with a network. And the bigger the network, the more powerful and the more abstract the concepts can be. But it starts out with proto-concepts, which is his solution to how babies start to acquire this knowledge, that they come up with proto-concepts and then build on them. And I think I like Sellers myself. And he seems to like Sellers, but he seems to get a different thing from him. So did we get to the part that you were talking about yet? Was it language? Was that, Scott?
Not so much language as concepts like distinguishing between red ball and the ball is red.
Yeah.
Which,
has he talked about that yet?
I don't think so. He's coming. I think he's coming up on it. What's the timestamp? 122, 122. Yeah, he's coming on it.
Yeah, we're a minute behind. So let's roll ahead and find it.
Okay.
Sign language, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Momo can discriminate. Momo actually has animal representation. So
animal
Sellers would call proto-concept. So there's a type of human conceptual, something's being kind of represented. Momo has the ability to perceptually distinguish, correct? Has memory, and even has some possibly ability, as you saw in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the ability to discriminate between something false and true. I believe. Okay. So you teach Momo, red ball, right? And Momo can use all of these things, animal representation,
I got to pause here. So made by Jim Knob, he says that atheists have no grounds for true and false. But Professor Sorem here just admitted that animals can determine true and false. So animals aren't atheists, they're believers? Is that?
Well, we don't know that he doesn't believe that animals have. We don't know that he doesn't believe animals have a belief in God. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he does. He says, as you saw in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the ability to discriminate between false and something false and true. A belief, okay. Okay. So anyway, now we're going to the red ball. Here we go.
Proto-concepts, memory and stuff like that, to distinguish and pick up the red ball and not the blue triangle. And various things. We won't go through all the details of the experiments that they do. This is how I try to get through to my students. But there's something Momo can never do. So Momo has the word red ball and can do all these highly intelligent cognitive abilities and these proto-concepts. Do you know what Momo can never do?
A blue ball.
Momo can never come up with drink fruit, which we know that Coco did come up with drink fruit. So he's saying that Momo could never do that, and that's because Momo is a man in a costume sitting on a park bench. And Coco, an actual gorilla, came up with drink fruit and could have come up with red ball or blue ball, and probably did all the time. So he's pure wrong. He's just flat out wrong. So there you go. Show's over. Don't you think? Got a comment there, Scott?
I worded my question to ChatGPT a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because he framed it as red ball versus blue triangle. I just said ball blue. Have gorillas or chimpanzees ever been tested to see if they can understand concepts like the ball is red or the ball is blue? Yes, gorillas, chimpanzees, and other primates have been tested to determine their ability to understand concepts like color and object properties. Research in this area has demonstrated that they are capable of understanding basic concepts such as identifying colors, matching objects based on their properties, and even using symbolic systems to represent these concepts.
Yeah.
Key findings: color recognition. Chimpanzees and gorillas can distinguish between different colors. They are often trained to match objects based on color and cognitive tasks. Studies have shown that chimpanzees can use symbols like tokens or touch screen icons to indicate specific colors. They can categorize. They have a capability of symbolic understanding. They can use language-like systems. And of course, it references gorillas like Coco. It mentions different experiments that have been done so that I just asked ChatGPT because, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just hold on to the next one because people don't like to be read to for long periods of time. But see, this is the thing that's going on is while of course I can always learn more about linguistics and cognitive neuroscience and items like that, I'm seeing, just by taking statements that this person makes and asking ChatGPT the question and asking for, the latest science on these things, that there's a big disagreement. So I just can't get much from this discussion he's having because one, it's based on a comic book. Number two, he seems to be factually wrong.
Yeah, he's wrong. This is why scientists get really mad at philosophers, because they need to at least take a clue from the science before they start spouting. Like, they're not going to sit there in their armchair and figure out what a gorilla does and what a gorilla's mind is capable of. Brody Alexander said, no, he didn't. That didn't require true or false. He said he seemed to agree with the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, where they said animals can discriminate between true and false. I'm sorry, but the man said it. So bite me, friend. And Brody is calling us names, calling us midwits. Brody, somebody's going to throw you out of my chat if you keep doing that. So I have cat watchers. Okay, so where we at? Ready to go? 1, 2, 5.
Yes.
Momo can grasp red ball in cognition. Can have animal representation of this. Momo can never grasp the ball as red.
Right, the category. That's what I meant by.
Yep.
It's a one-to-one relationship between the symbol and the thing, and
Yes.
they can't understand the categories of symbols. And you had a much more beautiful, eloquent understanding on no true language. That was my number 2. And I just kind of summed it up as that human language is so much more complex, and that animals, whether they use sounds, gestures, chemical signals, they are not utilizing symbolic language that conveys abstract, hypothetical, and creative ideas, enabling the transmission of culture and knowledge.
Yeah.
So knowledge is relegated to lived experience within the animal kingdom, which maybe they can warn. Maybe they have a way that they could warn another animal within their species to not do X, Y, Z. Maybe again the experiment done with crabs, and that some got electrocuted, and then all of them didn't want to go over to that tank because they didn't want to get electrocuted. But that is not symbolic language. That is not hypothetical thought.
So the other day, I've got 2 doors to my bathroom, and I closed one of the doors, and Snack was in there, and he heard somebody coming down the stairs, and he kind of looked at the door, and he was very confused because I very seldom could close my bathroom door down here, and he was very confused. But then very quickly, he backed up and went around into the bedroom and out the other door and found the person. And if that doesn't require reasoning, I don't know what does. And that's spatial reasoning. And cats have it. Unfortunately, Snack does not understand windows. He doesn't know how they work. I don't know why, but windows always surprise Snack. Walls, he understands. Windows, nope. Doesn't make sense. Anyway. But then Snack only has about 4 brain cells, so. Okay, logical space of reasons. You kidding me? Okay, here we go. Yeah, we can go a little bit further here. Unless you got something, Scott.
No.
But the point is, he's wrong about the gorillas being able to just talk about red balls. And
He
blue
certainly
balls.
appears to be.
He appears to be. And if you're wrong about that, then where are you going to go from here? I don't know.
Thought that is not creative idea making in the transmission of culture and knowledge that happens historically through generation after generation. That is a totally different process.
And we know that animals transfer cultural knowledge from one to the other. Crows do it, and chimpanzees do it, and they've tested that too. So they know.
Orcas do it.
Orcas do it.
Yeah, they teach their young to hunt and harass baby seals, and they go on training exercises to do it.
Anarchic Fox, we have social primates that have altered their social structures to external pressures. Is that not evidence of culture? Yes. Yeah, the thing is, like when I grew up, in the 50s, people were just absolutely against the idea that animals use tools or they could think at all or do anything, any of the things that since then we found out that they actually do. So for hundreds of years, thousands, millions of years, humans did not test animals to find out if they could do these things because we just knew that they couldn't because religion. It really gets in the way. Anyway, yeah, they teach their young to attack yacht rudders. Yeah, and there's that group of, I think they're orcas out in the Mediterranean that have suddenly started attacking boats. And there was one theory that it was because somebody got hit by a boat and now they're pissed off. So like there's an activist orca out there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Gathering together, other orcas, let's go get them. Hell with those humans. Anyway, curious about dogs that run miles from their house. Find a stranger and lead them back to their owner who's in distress. Yeah. That's happened, I guess. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, and think about, because a lot of people didn't understand, well, what's the difference between red ball and the ball is red? Like one's a name.
Exactly.
The second one is a lot of things. First of all, it's a concept. It forms within the logical space of reason. So it's not just, as we'll see, human beings don't just have a one-to-one, even if they could abstract and get a universal, because that's what's actually one of the things that's going on, is it's not a name, it's an idea. And you see this, I like to give an example that children go through. If you give a child a soccer ball and call it ball, they think it's an isomorphic one-to-one relationship, that's the name for that thing right there. And then you give them a tennis ball and they're confused and you call it ball, right? Because, well, wait a minute. How can that one name be for the two different things?
Exactly.
And then, I don't know.
And that's the difference between symbolic language, is that we can understand that a word means a category as opposed to a specific one-to-one relationship to a thing in the world.
And at some point, the child will get a eureka moment. And they realize that ball is not a name in this isomorphic relationship to the entity, but an idea. There, they just have reached the level of abstraction. Okay? So animals can't do that. They cannot.
Okay, can we pause it real quick?
Yeah, they can.
He just said they can't. ChatGPT. Have non-human, non-primate animals been scientifically demonstrated to be able to categorize objects like tennis ball, baseball, or beach ball into the category of ball? Yes, non-primate animals have been scientifically shown to categorize objects based on shared features, including categorizing objects like tennis balls, baseballs, or beach balls into the broader category of ball. While their abilities and mechanisms may differ from primates, animals such as birds, dolphins, and even some dogs can form abstract categories based on shared perceptual or functional traits. So once again,
wrong.
Temporary or tentative provisional results based on ChatGPT, but it seems that science is directly disagreeing with what the good Dr. Ananias has been saying.
If they challenge us on it, ChatGPT, my version that I pay for is very good at giving me the papers that back all up, and we can provide those if
and my results on my free app do provide summarizations of the key evidence for this in birds, dogs, pigeons, dolphins, rats, and elephants. So it's just, once again, just direct contradictions.
Yep. Now, the next thing that they're going to come up with is a little joke about nominalism, and it takes a really weird turn. And it has nothing to do with the subject, but I just wanted to have everybody give a listen to this and see what the hell we can make of it. I'm not sure entirely what I can make of it. I guess I would have to watch a lot of their other videos, but just listen to where this goes. It's a joke about nominalists, which is kind of funny.
So to make a funny joke, all animals are nominalists, which is funny because, as you pointed out, to embrace nominalism is to become a beast. Like, this is crazy. Exactly. All these philosophies we're doing, it's like it's returning you.
Well, and what do they advocate? Everybody who promotes nominalism is a return back to sexual immorality, pedophilia, abortion, essentially ritual murder, like all these things which when we define human civilization as a progress from.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm going, what's he talking about? Yeah.
What the fuck?
Making some unjustified extrapolations there.
So I don't know, where's Leo Phileas? You hear that, Leo? You're a beast. You're a nominalist. And for these guys, if they happen to listen to this, I am not a nominalist. I'm a realist about universals. But I believe they have a material and physical basis in space-time and quantum fields. So there you go. But yeah, they got to take a shot at the now. But I mean, what the hell is he talking about? What does that mean? To embrace nominalism is to become a beast. I don't know what they mean. I guess they're talking about relativism and subjectivism or something. They think that if you don't believe that there's objective morals outside of the human existence, that you have to be a subjectivist about morals, or you have to be a relativist, and that is a false dichotomy. The subjective-objective split is not the right story. It's not the right way to categorize morality.
Well, this is just a non sequitur. I mean, I don't know why he's trying to do this. I guess this is the woe is me, the world's going to hell kind of thing, that two strident old men, engage in when they get together on the front porch and whittle.
Yep. Let's see. And they go a little bit further here.
That's from now progress is a return to.
Yeah. So, but it's not just a concept now that they have a universal. They actually have the ability. Universals exist in a whole sphere of reason, right? And other concepts. So there's this kind of web, right? And this is what Sellers means is the logical space of reason.
Yes.
So, right, the logical relations between different universals and all of this stuff. And then you take another thing, this, right? You take a particular and you subsume it under the universal. This is a red ball. So you have two concepts, ballness, redness. Then a third thing, this, under the concept. And then what? A representation within the logical space of reason, i.e. language, of predication and the rules of grammar and logic. Are you?
Okay. So he's admitting that knowledge is a web, basically. I don't know if he knows he's admitting it, but you do not need to ground your epistemology in anything. You have knowledge based on a web of concepts that you acquire as you develop from zygote to where we are now, basically. And I just want to point that out. That's part of my philosophical reasoning.
And once again, I'm not going to read the thing because it's very similar to the other ones I read. Non-human animals can grasp or understand universals versus particulars. That was the opposite, right? Particulars?
Yeah, universals and particulars, yeah.
It's, I mean, and of course it names types of experiments, the animals that they were done with and kind of how the test was done. So, it's just a matter of degree. It's on a spectrum. It's not this absolute separation that just, somehow objectively makes humans that much more special, so much to the point that they're like God. They're in the image of a God. Maybe a lot of humans are narcissistic and they want to think of themselves as like God.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's how my cats, okay, when I say mousy, they look around on the floor and they also look up because they know that mousy can also mean bird. Anything that they bring into the house and let go is called a mousy, basically. And they bring in birds. I'm sorry. And I catch them and rescue them most of the time. It went badly once, but anyway. Okay, so this part.
I.e. language of predication and the rules of grammar and logic. Are you kidding me? Do you really think the animals do this? That's crazy. It's like, we know that they don't.
ALC's got a new two-shirt idea for Patristic Faith.
Okay, that's, I don't know what the hell this is. But yeah, we know they don't. But he apparently hasn't read anything about cognitive neuroscience or animal studies at all. So we know that. Let's see.
Well, I don't think anybody's saying that animals are just like humans.
No,
that's
not.
almost a straw man. But that certain animals can grasp language concepts. And that's just the spectrum.
Yeah, the same way that animals evolved from single-celled organisms or from even minerals, basically, how abiogenesis happened, this explosion of complexity, it's the same sort of thing with language. Once you get this ability to record, mutate, and duplicate, right? You end up with this explosion of complexity, and that's what happened with humans and language. We acquired a few traits, a few abilities, a vocal ability, Wernicke's area and Broca's area, and the brain expanded and acquired this structure that allowed us to create our first language. Once we did that, it exploded, and it became this huge network of complexity. And that is a really beautiful thing about the universe and complexity, is it has this capability of crossing this threshold of small parts, small, simple parts, and suddenly exploding into complexity. And that's why we're sitting here talking to each other right now, and our hearts are beating and oxygen circulating through our bodies and all that bullshit. So anyway. Philosobabble is so obsessed with ism labels. Well, when you're intellectually masturbated, ism is important. Thank you, Sydney. Good one.
I think we just went PG-13 with that one.
Yeah, we did. I hope I'm definitely missing some chat, guys, but I do save the chats, and we can discuss later or something. We got a 4 o'clock coming up on the captive desk.
Yeah, we've been going about an hour, and our point is they don't know. They don't seem to have a very good grasp of at least the scientific literature about cognitive neuroscience, cognitive abilities in the different animals, the ability to make reason. So there's a lot of disagreement with them according to the scientific data. So I just don't see where they're adding to my knowledge or adding to.
Right. We'll go ahead. I've got like 1 or 2 minutes more. I got one other part where he makes a kind of a strange admission, and then we'll take a look at some ChatGPT stuff if I can find the right stuff. Okay. And then we'll get out of here because that's long enough. Agreed? You're not agreeing with me. Oh no. Did you disappear, Scott?
No, it's the mute thing.
Oh, okay.
Brody's trying to justify calling other people goblins, and
you call me a goblin.
He's accusing us of mocking Ananias Sorem's credentials.
Oh,
I'm questioning the credentials.
He's a
And I'm seeing where he appears to be wrong a lot. And that certainly raises questions of credibility to me.
Philosopher.
It certainly provides motivation to do further study on the topic.
Yeah, a philosopher is a person who doesn't check with the science and basically has an opinion before and his opinion is all, the Bible and God and all this Orthodox weirdness they come up with. And he loves Aristotle, which is like what, 2,500 years ago or longer. I can't remember. A philosopher. And he's a very, very good one. And he's well-read, well-read in philosophy of mind and all that stuff. He just comes up with the wrong shit. Well, Brody got banned. Oh no, he was banned.
This is weird. I think there may be a bug in the YouTube program, because when I clicked on put user in timeout,
banned him.
Then it said it banned him. So I don't know what unless somebody else went in behind me and banned him.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
but yeah, Brody, other people may have called names, but you sure seem to be intent on it. So that's why I put you in a timeout, because I'd already warned you. You made the same, you called the same name. Apparently, a midwit is a favorite word of yours, but I really don't think you should be calling people names, especially if you seem to approve of Christians calling other people goblins. That's not a very ethical thing to do, a very nice thing to do.
So Anarchic Fox hopes he learns to manage his big feelings because chimpanzees and dogs and cats can. So we're hoping that you learn to do it too. Anyway. Okay, we're going just a little bit ahead.
Anyways, do you want to
we got a couple more questions.
Yeah, hit those while I try to find it.
Sincere Hypocrite sent in $5, says, if animals only react to simple input-output, almost like a machine, do they have any sort of free will at all if they are acting on instinct? I'm curious what your response is. I already have an idea of what I would say to that.
Well, first of all, I want to avoid kind of cartoon. Descartes actually thought animals didn't have souls and were just machines. I think animals have souls, like human souls, but like what Aristotle says. And so I don't think they're just simply input and output. I think like the things that we were talking about, proto-concepts, and all these different abilities, that makes a difference, so that they're not anything like machines at all. However,
okay, it's pretty much game over for him. He's taken all the pieces of rationality, and he's admitted that animals have this and animals have that and animals have this, and now they have some kind of soul, basically, and they're not machines. So,
well, I think in the Greek it might be well, I don't know. I can't remember the different Greek words for suke and nous and things like that. But yeah, there's different Greek words that apply to mind, spirit, or soul, and so they just pick one and say that's your animal soul or whatever. But it doesn't matter. Once again, soul is a comic book concept. It's a nice little fiction that a lot of people have ascribed to that accounts for the inner life of humans. However, as with the advancement of science, we know more about how the brain works, how the mind works, how the biological systems work, and there's no need for a soul. Unless you use it metaphorically, like somebody's attitude, somebody's energy level, somebody's ability to love and have compassion. Yeah, suke. That's definitely one of those words. So yeah, it's not a very useful thing to say animals have souls, and it's good that you believe that, but it's not very useful in helping me understand anything about the universe.
Yeah, and they use the word instinct a lot in here, and they claim that animals don't have rationality; they have instinct. And so I asked ChatGPT, what are the modern ideas about instinct in animals, and is it still a relevant term? So thought about animal instincts and relevance for a few seconds. I thought about it for a few hours. Modern ideas about instinct in animals and its relevance. Okay, the concept of instinct, broadly defined as inborn or innate patterns of behavior that appear in an organism without prior learning, have been central to debates in philosophy, psychology, and ethology, study of animal behavior. Modern research has refined, in some cases, replaced it with more specific frameworks. Below is an overview of how it remains relevant or not in contemporary science. So historical foundations, we go back to 1930s, 1960s, pre-programmed responses. Now, there's really interesting things about instinct. And what got me into neuroscience was one question, one single question. They did all these studies on males and found out that they prefer a certain ratio of waist to hip in females. And I wanted to know how neurons and genes can create a brain that always finds for that same ratio, right? And I learned years and years and years of neuroscience. And you know what? Still don't know. How a deer gets up and starts walking right away, how that gets encoded in the brain. And it's a real subtle question, and I've come to understand that it is a very, very complex interplay of the world and the body parts and the nervous system, basically, that creates this ability for an animal to do things without learning them particularly. Well, when you see a baby deer first get up and walk, they don't do it very well, but they learn very, very quickly. And it's because of it's because of this canalization, basically. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of theory. Okay, from instinct to innate behaviors or fixed action patterns, many researchers now avoid the blanket term instinct, preferring more precise phases like innate behavior, species typical behavior, or FAP. I don't know what fixed action patterns. Shift occurred partly because instinct can be vague and historically carried the implication of being fully fixed and unmodifiable. And they know today that that's not the case. Here we go. Even highly canalized ones. Scientists know most behaviors. So that's what I was talking about, these canalized behaviors. They have to do with the structure of the organism as it develops. Let's see, incorporate insights from evolutionary biology, ecology, genetics. For instance, spider's web building instincts reflects an evolved design for capturing prey efficiently. Now that's an interesting instinct, spider web building. Instead of labeling behaviors purely instinctive, they investigate the neural circuits and genetic programs that enable certain behaviors. On vertebrates, for example, circuits in the hypothalamus and brainstem support survival behaviors, feeding, mating, aggression, which can look instinctual. However, context and prior experience can modulate these behaviors significantly. So, and then we get into some modern views on all of this, and there's a whole lot here. Okay, pros, heuristic value. It can be a quick shorthand for describing behaviors. However, it's vague, oversimplifies, and neural complexity. Labeling something as instinct can obscure the nuanced neural and developmental processes that actually underlie the behavior. So we have bird songs, mating and courtship displays, parental care, things that exist in humans too, you know. Summary and key takeaways, long history, okay, whatever. Further reading, they have a couple of articles here that you could look at. Okay, so Wilfred Sellers on proto-concepts, let's see. He didn't actually use that term, I don't think. Did not always use the term proto-concepts in a fully systematic or programmatic way. Many commentators interpret portions of his work, especially his discussions of animal and infant cognition, as well as his broader critique of pure sense data. So he has the myth of the given, which attacks empiricism, and on and on. I could go on and on, Scott, but do you think we should stop here? Or?
Yeah, I don't see any reason to continue.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I think so. Jim Bob yesterday said, "Oh, way to go! No arguments." Well, we gave you some arguments. We pointed out a number of places where he's wrong. The most significant being he thought Momo, which was a joke, was an actual thing, and for some reason he pulled 86 signs out of his ass. It was actually around 2,000 words and 1,000 signs.
For Coco, right?
Yeah, for Coco,
Yeah.
not Momo. Momo didn't exist, dude.
Only two letters different between K and M. So
Yeah. Well, it indicates that he did not research any of this very well. He went with his biblical interpretation and his opinion. And the shame is that he mentions in a number of places how he's like fighting against his students because his students are trying to convince him of something opposite, or some of his students are. And he's sort of treating them badly. I think he should reevaluate that and listen to him a little bit. Let's see. Oh, is Jim Bob here?
yeah, he showed up. Now I think my problem was I used, without really noticing, I used StreamYard to put that one guy in a timeout, and then
okay.
maybe that's where the bug is in the software. I didn't use YouTube, so I'll have to be more mindful of that.
Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't really contributed a lot. Let's see. I'm going to show some of Austin's quotes here. People used to believe that animals didn't feel pain. Yes. When I was a kid growing up, that was one of the arguments. See, and they changed in obvious directions, accepting rationality, feeling. Yeah, and the other in further talk here, they go on about emotions, and they admit that animals have emotions, but somehow they don't think they're human emotions. They think they're different. And that's where we anthropomorphize. We often think we are not being emotional, that we're being rational, when we are indeed being emotional, as we saw in a recent election.
What was that guy who wrote, I can't remember the book. He was a medical doctor. On Being Certain, I think was the book where he kind of made that point. It was, yeah. I lost it a long time ago, but it was a good book. It was very interesting.
On Being Certain. Let me see who the author is. That is, Robert Burton is the author of that book, I believe. Is that the one, On Being Certain?
Yes, it's good because it talks about, the emotional and cognitive aspects of that feeling of certainty we get.
Yeah, Robert Burton, MD. Let me see. Okay, unfortunately, the link I've got. Okay, I would like to put a link out, but I don't know what the hell this link is. It's pretty long. I could try. We'll see what happens. Put it in chat. Oh, man, it's not even accepting that. What? Oh, no, it has too many characters. I can't even put it in chat. Anyway, the book is On Being Certain by Robert Burton, MD. And it's a pretty good book. I think it came out, about 15, 20 years ago almost, something like that, a while ago. Anyway.
I know I read it around the time I first started deconverting, or what's the new word for it? Deconstructing. And because, at that time I was real curious about things that I had taken for granted, and so read that book along with it. So it's been at least since 2010, maybe.
Okay. You ready to end this? We got to rest up for Dave's stream, 2 hours.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We've had between 9 and 25 viewers, I think. So, sounds good.
And it was a very engaged.
Did Jim stop by for real?
He made a couple comments. Yeah. Let me find it.
We love Jim Bob. Question isn't about feeling, which is just stimuli. The question is about making value judgments about experience of stimuli. Yeah, animals do that.
No, feeling is a response to stimuli. If you're talking about emotions now, nerve sensations, but that's different from feeling. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe they were talking about just sensations and not emotions. I'm just going to back out of that conversation because
yep,
I don't have the full context.
Most of our responses are in the moment, they're occurrent, and they're without a whole lot of thinking. I mean, most of what we do during the day does not involve a whole lot of reasoning, but we are very used to and trained as modern Westerners. We're trained to basically take the narrative in our brain too seriously, like to the point that it actually makes us miserable because we don't feel life enough. We don't feel our toes and feel our emotions as strongly as we could. But we're always operating on this dispositional emotional system that, where, what is it? The Christmas Carol, where they're talking about the bad bit of beef causing the ghosts.
Yeah.
Sometimes our stomachs are drastically affecting how we're thinking and how we're behaving. And it's actually our stomach being a little bit upset or not upset or hungry or whatever.
Or
we have
to me, the way I think of it is our brains making our stomach act up, which makes our brain act up, which makes our stomach act. It's a cyclic kind of thing.
Yeah. So when I say we anthropomorphize our own thoughts and actions and consciousness, what I mean is that we mistake it for being about this narrative we have going in our minds and our default mode network, which we've pretty much been trained on because of our Western culture. And I don't think that is the case for all human beings. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to end it. Bye. Kill it. Turn ahead. Scott, I'm looking for approval.
I approve. Goodbye, everybody. Join us at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific or Eastern. 5 p.m. Eastern for SNATA, SANATA, SNATA on the Captive Desk channel. Are you gonna dual broadcast it, or is it just going to be on the Captive Desk channel?
I'm just going to do it on Captive Desk. I don't have the energy to dual because then I got to stick around. With Dave, I can disappear and go eat. Anyway, Dave put the link in chat here a little while ago. So please attend. Anyway, okay. Good enough.
Talk to y'all later.
Wait a minute. Oh, Jim Bob's back. Wait, hold. How would worshiping a creator God be derivative of animal behavior? Yeah, animals aren't that dumb, Jim Bob. Okay, we're ending.
Goodbye, folks.
Goodbye, world. All right.